The highlight of my life was singing for the souls there. I stood out on an open stage and it was cold, but I swear I didn't feel a thing except good.
It was February 1954, at a lull of the USA's involvement in the Korean War. Taking a break from her honeymoon with Yankees baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, Hollywood actress Marilyn Monroe performs for around 60,000 U.S. Marines over 4 days. She sings, "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend," in a tight sequined dress. It was the image of America's post-war economic and consumerist boom. A star in the true meaning of the word. A burst of blinding light, dazzling and radiant, melting all those who came too close. And before you know it, once again dispersed into the cosmos. She became the wide-smiled poster girl of sex, money, and glamour. A true story of the American dream, a rags-to-riches fairy tale of transformation.
So we embark upon 1954, a world ever new, ever changing, distances ever shrinking, events and people making history.
Have you ever met Miss Lindy? She's a gal with the bright red hair. Now she stands high from all the rest. You know her anywhere. Well, she's mine. Yeah, she's mine. Well, I love that little girl with the bright red hair. Well, Miss Lindy, my Miss Lindy. Well, I love that little girl with the bright red hair. Have you ever seen Miss Lindy? She likes to dance all day, and when she does rock and roll, it takes your breath away. Well, she's mine. Yeah, she's mine. Well, I love that.
American society in the 1950s is marked by the post-World War II boom. The economy boomed. American consumers eagerly spent the money saved from 3 years of rationing. The newly instated GI Bill allowed many returning veterans to buy homes in the rapidly expanding suburbs. New home buyers filled their homes with revolutionary household appliances. The growing economy allowed middle-class families to buy new automobiles and own television sets. A baby boom followed the new nuclear family bliss, which recorded 4 million births each and every year. It was the golden age of American capitalism. Economic recovery after the war and the Great Depression that preceded it relied heavily on a culture of mass consumption. It was a time of the American dream, a national concept believing that individual upward social mobility was the country's foundation. You could be no one and become someone if you work hard.
Jonathan had big dreams of the wonderful rewards of being in business for himself.
A truck driver becomes Elvis Presley. An orphan becomes Marilyn Monroe. Foster home to Hollywood studio, all through a dramatic reinvention of self.
My lady?
By the time she landed in Korea, Marilyn was a symbol of this new American icon. She possessed the classic glamour of Hollywood's golden era, with a humble beginnings backstory that made her both aspirational and relatable to the public. Importantly, Marilyn was perceived as a specifically American star, described by Photoplay magazine as a national institution as well known as hot dogs, apple pie, or baseball. In the 1950s, after the horrors of the war, Americans were confident that the future promised only peace, prosperity, and patriotism. However, the Cold War, the growing threat of nuclear destruction and the resulting Red Scare that followed, installed an all-permeating paranoia in society. Inequalities in race, gender, and sexuality would also begin to spark tensions as the decade continued. Throughout Marilyn's life in the spotlight, she can represent both the rise and fall of the mid-century American dream, revealing the intrinsic relationship between Hollywood film stars and the dominant ideologies of their time.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Indulgence of any kind went against America's Protestant ethics before the war. Frugality was valued. It was during these times that Norma Jean Mortensen was born in California on the 1st of June, 1926. The contrasting backdrops of the Great Depression and the burgeoning prosperity of the Los Angeles film industry influenced her early life. From a young age, Norma's life seemed intertwined with Hollywood. Speaking about her childhood in a Life magazine interview in 1962, Marilyn stated, "I didn't like the world around me because it was kind of grim. When I heard that this was acting, I said, that's what I want to be. Some of my foster families used to send me to the movies to get me out of the house, and there I'd sit all day and way into the night. Up in front, there with the screen so big, a little kid all alone. And I loved it." Norma didn't know her father. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, worked as a film negative cutter at Consolidated Film Industries. In 1934, Norma's mother had a severe mental breakdown and was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. She lived in and out of the hospital for the rest of her life. Young Norma became a ward of the state, placed in a Los Angeles orphan home.
I could read at 10. I saw an orphan, and I put my feet down on the sidewalk, and they had to drag me in like I'm not an orphan. I used to sit up in the window and cry because I'd look over and I'd see RKO, and I knew my mother had worked there. She'd been a cutter there.
She was a youngster who looked as though she wasn't well cared for. Her clothes separated her a little bit from the rest of the girls. She was like a little girl, not well developed as some of the youngsters were. She just seemed like a nice child, but not very outgoing and not very vibrant.
Norma would go on to stay in 9 foster homes, eventually living with a friend of her mother, Grace Goddard, in 1941. Grace's husband was soon relocated to West Virginia for work. Californian child protection laws prevented Norma from being able to go with Grace, leading her to make a decision. To avoid facing the orphanage again, in 1942, Norma married the neighbor's son, James Doherty. She dropped out of high school to become a housewife at age 16. Norma idolized movie stars like Jean Harlow, glamorous blonde bombshells dripping in diamonds. The movie star lifestyle seemed worlds away from Norma's reality. Raised on the same land as the Californian gold rush, maybe it was in Norma's blood to know how much things could change and how fast this could happen. The mythic American dream taught her that her country was the land of opportunity, and Norma knew she wanted ever so badly to escape her predestined origins of poverty and madness. In April 1944, James was shipped out to the Pacific with the Marines and remained there for the next 2 years. Norma moved in with her in-laws. Like many other women in the 1940s, Norma found independence through her contribution to the war effort. She worked as a technician for Radioplane, an American aviation company. In late 1944, Norma met photographer David Conover, who had been sent to take morale-boosting pictures of female workers. This encounter led Norma to pursue modeling full-time. Against her husband's wishes, she signed with Blue Book Model Agency in 1945. She divorced James Doherty the following year.
Norma Jean looked like the girl next door, and I thought I could make her into something quite marketable in a short length of time. She was very beautiful in a clean-cut, American, wholesome way. We taught her photographic modeling, how to pose, how to handle your body, smile. She was always trying to lower her smile because she smiled too high, and that made her nose a little long. She had a different kind of knees than other girls. She couldn't just relax her knees and walk smoothly, but every time she'd take a step, her knees would go all the way back and make her bounce.
Through her pinup modeling, Norma secured a 6-month contract with 20th Century Fox. Like many stars who had come before Norma, she was required to adopt a stage name. Created of a blend of her mother's maiden name, Monroe, and the Broadway star Marilyn Miller, Marilyn Monroe was born. This reinvention was the birth of a new persona, a chance for Norma to leave her troubled childhood in the past. This is a classic example of Hollywood's famous star system at the time. In this system, Hollywood stars were employees of the studios they worked for. For example, 20th Century Fox or Paramount would have a band of studio-exclusive actors working for them under contract. The contracts were often complex, allowing the studios to choose their actors' roles and the ability to loan them to other studios to work. New names and fictitious glamorous personas that mirrored their movie roles were central to the system. Audiences expected stars to reflect their public life in movie roles and vice versa. At 20th Century Fox, the newly christened Marilyn Monroe had small parts in the films Dangerous Years and Scudda Hoo, Scudda Hey.
Am I going to see you later?
I'm not too tired.
But Evie, I thought we had a date.
Look, this tray weighs a ton.
Marilyn's contract was not renewed in 1947 due to being seen as too shy and insecure to have a future in acting.
I didn't have an opportunity to do anything, actually, during the year that I was there at 20th Century Fox the first time, except one part in Scudda Who Scudda Hey, and I was cut out of it. And then they dropped me.
She was thought of as a joke by many people. And I think this hurt her very deeply because she was very serious.
Marilyn persisted, signing to Columbia in 1948, where she starred in the low-budget musical Ladies of the Chorus.
He asked me, how come a baby doll has no comfy place to go? So I told that kindly gentleman my tale of woe. Every baby needs a daddy to keep her worry-free.
Her signing to Columbia also signifies the beginning of Marilyn's physical transformation. Her platinum bleach blonde hair now mirrored her childhood idol, Jean Harlow. As orphan Norma Jean began to slip from memory, Marilyn Monroe, the movie star, was only just arriving to define the decade of the 1950s.
Anyone can see I care. The way I hold your hand and smile in your direction tells the world my heart is filled with nothing but affection. Lock me in your arms forever. That's a place I want to be. So anyone can see that I belong to you and you belong to me.
When her Columbia contract ended, Monroe once again returned to modeling. Marilyn had now realized her image was marketable, from advertisements to covers of pinup magazines. In 1949, she posed for an infamous nude calendar. Teetering on the edge of show business, these jobs were necessary for Marilyn to scrape by.
This is the first car I ever owned. I call her Cynthia. She's going to have the best care a car ever had. Put Royal Triton in Cynthia's little tummy.
Right, lady.
Cynthia will just love that Royal Triton.
Marilyn began to land her first critically acclaimed roles in 1950, for example, in John Mankiewicz's All About Eve.
Why do they always look like unhappy rabbits?
Because that's what they are. I've got to make him happy.
And John Huston's The Asphalt Jungle.
What I said yesterday was... Well, it wasn't exactly... I mean... It wasn't really the...
Was it the truth?
No, sir.
I remember she impressed me more off the screen than she did on. There was something touching and appealing about her. And this, of course, is what people finally saw on the screen. What moved them.
Signing her second contract in 1951 with 20th Century Fox, Marilyn had supporting roles in 3 moderately successful Fox comedies: As Young as You Feel, Love Nest, and Let's Make It Legal. Marilyn's performances started to have a running theme. They would exemplify stereotypes around blonde women. Similar to a lineage of platinum predecessors before Marilyn, the dumb blonde archetype appears to have lived in the collective consciousness since the dawn of time. It denotes a blonde woman with an excess of sex appeal that contrasts with her lack of intellectual power. In the past decades of Hollywood, actresses such as Katharine Hepburn and Joan Crawford defined their times of economic hardship with a strong-willed and smart approach. Similarly, Marilyn's approach to the character of the dumb blonde was emblematic of these new post-war times. Different to blondes before her, like Mae West, who was known for an overpowering sexuality, Marilyn seemed not even to be aware of the effect she was having. She was famed for double entendres that came to be known as Monroeisms, which appeared to confirm the public's perception of her as stupid. Her quick wit and literary awareness proved quite the opposite. The dumb blonde archetype seemed to be something the 1950s audience deeply desired, and Marilyn would play the part. In 1952, the nude calendar Marilyn had shot in 1949 was leaked to the press. It was a scandal that had the potential to end her career. The expectation was that Marilyn would deny it was her in the photos. However, Marilyn charmed the public with her honesty surrounding the calendar. In an interview, she candidly explained that she was broke and needed the money. The calendar was instrumental in changing perceptions of women's embodied sexuality in the 1950s, but unfortunately, it also revealed exploitation beneath. The photos were featured in the first issue of Playboy magazine, in which Marilyn had neither given consent nor received payment. For $500, Hugh Hefner had bought the negatives of the nude 1949 photo shoot, for which Marilyn had been paid $50. Hefner would become a millionaire, while Marilyn never made another dime from the photos. In early 1952, Marilyn began her highly publicized romance with retired New York Yankee star Joe DiMaggio. They appeared to be the perfect couple. Marilyn continued to play roles which typecast her as the dumb blonde. In her next film, We're Not Married, her role as a beauty pageant contestant was created solely to present Marilyn in 2 bathing suits, according to its writer.
Here, hold this, will you?
In Howard Hawks' Monkey Business, in which she acted opposite Cary Grant, she played a secretary who is a dumb, childish blonde, innocently unaware of the havoc her sexiness causes around her.
Aren't you here early?
Oh, yes. Mr. Oxley's been complaining about my punctuation, so I'm careful to get here before 9. Mr. Oxley's on the telephone. Won't you sit down?
Oh,
I'm glad we have a moment. I have something I want to show you.
For instance?
Isn't it wonderful?
I beg your pardon?
The new non-rip plastic stockings you invented.
By 1953, it seemed that Marilyn's work on low-budget films had left a mark on the film industry.
The Look Achievement Award is the most outstanding feminine newcomer of 1952.
Thank you, Lawrence.
And as Best Young Box Office Personality, Miss Marilyn Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Marilyn Monroe, the moviegoers of America, voted you the most popular actress of the year. My congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
As she was cast in her first starring role in the Technicolor film noir, Niagara.
Kiss me, hold me tight.
Each succeeding film brought her stardom closer to earth. Her second film of 1953, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, was one of the biggest box office successes of the year. Her role as the gold-digging showgirl Lorelei has become career-defining. The part and the songs featured seem to cement the Marilyn Monroe persona to the audience.
You don't, Lovey. It goes on your head.
You must think I was born yesterday.
Well, sometimes there's just no other possible explanation.
No, no, my dear, she's quite right. Like so. It's a tiara.
You do wear it on your head. I just love finding new places to wear diamonds.
There's the music.
The song, Two Little Girls from Little Rock, acts as a suitable class identity origin story on which Marilyn Monroe's persona relied.
We're just two little girls from Little Rock. We lived on the wrong side of the tracks. But the gentlemen friends who used to call, they never did seem to mind at all. They came to the wrong side of the tracks.
Furthermore, the satiric Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend has gained iconic status.
A girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but it won't pay the rental on your humble flat or help you at the automat. Men grow cold as girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end.
The invention of her dumb blonde persona could be said to be Marilyn's great career achievement. Her comedic prowess and quick wit in these roles stands up to this day. The trouble she found was that when the cameras were off, the public still believed that was who she was. The reinvented image she had created had become so integrated into how she was perceived, it would continue to limit the roles she would receive for the rest of her career. The construction of the performance of Marilyn Monroe up until the mid-50s had been the shining example of the American dream. Her reinvention from orphan to the most famous actress in America seemed proof that this long-standing mythology had a root in reality. Monroe also exerted a great deal of economic influence. As early as 1952, it was estimated that Marilyn's name on a movie increased the gross by at least $500,000. And by 1956, every film that was made without Marilyn earned at least $1 million less because her name was not on the marquee. Her image represented an all-American patriotism, singing for the U.S. soldiers with blonde hair and her lipstick, Coca-Cola Red. She was even cast for a cameo in a 1953 Cold War PSA, declassified in the 1995 documentary Trinity and Beyond.
Action may prevent a minor incident from developing into a serious one. Avoid writing about classified material in letters home. Be sure you're secure. Don't be careless.
I hate a careless man.
However, as the decade progressed, the image and the dream started to fall apart for Marilyn in America's post-war utopia. It appeared that the American dream of the early 50s had started to collapse in on itself. A decade of promised peace and prosperity in America had begun to be dominated by the Cold War. The image of one of the brightest stars created by the Hollywood dream machine had begun to flicker. Following her Korea trip, Marilyn began filming for Billy Wilder's The 7-Year Itch. Starring opposite Tom Ewell, Marilyn played a woman who became the object of her married neighbor's sexual fantasies.
Oh, do you feel the breeze from the subway? Isn't it delicious?
Sort of cools the ankles, doesn't it? Well, what do you think would be fun to do now?
I don't know. It's getting pretty late.
Although the film was shot in Hollywood, the studio decided to generate publicity by filming the subway grate scene on site on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. The shoot attracted nearly 2,000 spectators.
Oh, I think it's terrific. Very nice. Some girl.
I think it's very nice, but I'd rather it were me.
I said, what has Marilyn Monroe got that a million other women have and prefer not to show?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Well, it's pretty vulgar, if you ask me.
The film has been said to have become a catalyst for the collapse of Marilyn's seemingly ideal marriage to Joe DiMaggio, due to his anger at the famous subway grate scene. In 1954, Marilyn filed for divorce.
Miss Monroe will have nothing to say this morning. All I can say as her attorney is that this is what we would say with the conflict of careers. And as regrettable as it may be, it will have to be presented in the proper place at the proper time.
After filming The 7-Year Itch, Monroe moved eastwards. Tired of her lack of power to choose roles, she founded her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, and moved to Manhattan in 1955 to study acting under coaches Lee and Paula Strasberg.
Marilyn always dreamt of being an actress. She didn't, by the way, dream of being a star. She dreamt of being an actress. And she had always lived somehow with that dream. And that is why, despite the fact that she became one of the unusual and outstanding stars of all time, she herself was never satisfied. When she came to New York, she began to perceive the possibilities of really accomplishing her dream of being an actress.
You're wearing a high-neck dress now. The last time I saw you wear it. Is this a new Marilyn, a new style? No, I'm the same person, but it's a different suit.
In New York, Marilyn began dating acclaimed playwright Arthur Miller. The public recognized this as a departure from Marilyn's previous public persona. The media nicknamed them the Owl and Pussycat. In 1956, Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller married.
Miss Monroe, could you tell us what kind of a wedding you're going to have?
Very quiet, I hope.
Do you feel certain at this time that you will be able to get away to go to England?
I feel certain I'm going to try awfully hard.
In the event that you are not able to go, will Miss Monroe still go?
Oh, sure. She's got to go. She's got a contract to go.
Well, that means you may not have a honeymoon together then.
I think we will.
I hope so.
The Cold War had become a part of American life. Anti-communist propaganda and witch hunts instilled a culture of deep paranoia. In the years following the war, media and culture exhibited general anxiety about the spread of the Soviet Union's communism. Public hysteria was coined the Red Scare. Films such as 1956's Invasion of the Body Snatchers illustrate how these anxieties seep into the media of the time.
Every one of them. Listen, we're going to have to search every building, every house in town. Men, women, and children are going to have to be examined. We've got some phoning to do.
Well, I'm going to stay right here where I can watch them.
I'm going to stay with you.
The FBI was actively investigating Miller for allegations of communism, which led to the FBI opening a file on Marilyn. The same year, Senator McCarthy's House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, targeted Miller, who was threatened with jail time for refusing to name other suspected communists. During the HUAC hearings, Marilyn supported Miller despite intense pressure from her studio and other Hollywood bigwigs. Marilyn Monroe was seen as an entirely American creation. Her new elopement with a suspected communist was met with raised eyebrows. In March 1959, Marilyn won a Golden Globe for her role in Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot.
I wanna be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you.
She played Polish ukulele-wielding airhead named Sugarcane, alongside Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon.
Sugar, you're gonna get yourself into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you better keep a lookout.
If Beanstalk catches you again. What's the matter with you anyway?
I'm not very bright, I guess.
I wouldn't say that. Careless, maybe.
No, just dumb. If I had any brains, I wouldn't be on this crummy train with this crummy girl's band.
After the success of Some Like It Hot, Marilyn took a hiatus until late 1959, when she starred in the musical comedy Let's Make Love. However, the production was delayed due to her frequent absences from the set. In the myth of the American dream, it would be thought that Marilyn had it all. However, she remained wounded by her difficult childhood. At the dawn of the 1960s, Marilyn's mental health declined rapidly. She suffered from insomnia, depression, anxiety, and a dangerous prescription drug and alcohol habit. Marilyn had initially started taking barbiturates in her early acting career to cope with stress and a lack of sleep. By the late 1950s, it was said her addiction was so severe that her makeup on set usually had to be applied while she was still asleep under the influence.
Would you do me a favor?
Certainly. What is it?
I may not be Dr. Freud or a male brother or one of those French upstairs girls, but could I take another crack at it?
In retrospect, Marilyn singing Happy Birthday, Mr. President in 1962 is seen as her strangely conclusive public swan song. Eerily introduced as the late Marilyn Monroe, Marilyn shimmers ghostly luminous in the monochrome film.
Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe.
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you. Thanks, Mr. President, for all the things you've done, the battles that you've won, the way you deal with U.S. Steel and our problems by the ton. We thank you so much. Everybody, happy birthday!
It was rumored that Marilyn was having an affair with the then president, John F. Kennedy, although nothing has ever been confirmed. At the Madison Square Garden celebration, she wore a nude-colored, skin-tight dress covered in rhinestones. The appearance feels like the familiar 1950s Marilyn turned up to 100. Intensely glamorous, parodic, exaggerated sexuality, and wholly American. What was new was a sense of bubbling unease concerning her physical and mental health. The aspects that defined the constructed Marilyn Monroe appeared to be at a point of near implosion. Three months later, Marilyn Monroe died in her Brentwood bedroom from an overdose of barbiturates. Marilyn's doctors stated that she had been prone to severe fears and frequent depressions, with abrupt and unpredictable mood changes, and had overdosed several times, possibly intentionally. Due to these statements, her death was ruled a probable suicide.
Monroe has suffered from psychiatric disturbance for a long time. She had often expressed wishes to give up, to withdraw, and even to die. On more than one occasion in the past, when disappointed and depressed, she had made a suicide attempt using sedative drugs. On these occasions, she had called for help and had been rescued. From the information collected about the events of the evening of August the 4th, it is our opinion that the same pattern was repeated except for the rescue. On the basis of all the information obtained, it is our opinion that the case is a probable suicide.
The death of Marilyn Monroe signified a new truth about Western culture, and more specifically, the American dream. Initially representing the economic optimism of the 1950s, Marilyn has come to be associated instead with the all-devouring consumerist attitudes of the time. She was seen as a product to be sold and consumed by the public. Her tragic death revealed her life as more than a Cinderella story of rags to riches. As the reality of her success was that she still felt hopeless despite her transformation. The persona of Marilyn Monroe she had created through the Hollywood machine had ended up preventing people from viewing her as a real person. She had become the defining martyr of the decade. Marilyn's last completed film, The Misfits, was released in 1961. Written by Arthur Miller, Marilyn plays the role of divorcee Rosalind, who become friends with three aging cowboys.
Get out of here! Follow him! Shock him down, Guido! Get off! You want him? Get still! Rosalind! Shut up and pull that horse down! Get up!
Marilyn's deteriorating state plagued the production. She was dependent on alcohol and prescription drugs and had difficulty remembering her lines.
Time and life had done her considerable damage. She took so many sleeping pills to rest that in the morning she had to take stimulants to wake her up. And this ravaged the girl. She broke down, and I had to send her to a hospital for a week before we could go on with the shooting.
The film had mixed reviews at the time, but has been remembered as one of Marilyn's most captivating performances.
I think you're the saddest girl I ever met.
You're the first man ever said that. I'm usually told how happy I am.
Various photographers captured the film's stars candidly behind the scenes. It presented an honesty between the audience and the actor that would have been unthinkable when Marilyn started her career in the early 1950s. It is a shortcut to remember Marilyn as a beautiful woman with a tragic life. The photos on the set of The Misfits show Marilyn as a multifaceted woman, possessing fragility and beauty, but also strength, energy, and passion for her craft.